Charles Dickens.
Ah, Dickens specifically.
Perfect for this season.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at excerpts from the first part of his novella, The Chimes. It's a holiday story.
It is.
But with a bit of a twist.
Yeah, a twist.
A Dickensian twist.
A signature Dickens twist.
Absolutely.
Festive backdrop, but layered with social commentary.
Right.
That's thought-provoking and surprisingly relevant.
Very much so.
Even today.
Indeed. Dickens masterfully uses the holiday season, a time often associated with joy and celebration, to kind of expose the stark realities of poverty and social injustice in Victorian England.
And it all starts with a chilling scene at a church at midnight.
Right.
With a bone-chilling wind howling around it. Dickens uses vivid imagery, like moaning wind and flawed and broken tablets, to paint a picture that's far from the warm and fuzzy holiday vibe we might expect.
Definitely.
What do you make of this deliberate contrast?
It's a brilliant way to set the stage for the social critique that unfolds by juxtaposing the harsh reality of poverty with the idealized image of the holiday season. Dickens immediately highlights the dissonance between societal expectations and the lived experiences of the less fortunate.
And then we meet Trotty Veck, our ticket porter, braving the elements to make a living.
Right.
You can practically feel the cold seeping through the pages, as Dickens describes him as goose-skin, blue-nosed, struggling against the wind with his feeble little cane.
Yeah, Dickens doesn't shy away from depicting the harsh working conditions of the time, especially for those like Toby, who rely on physical labor. He even points out the irony of bad weather being Toby's holiday. Because it provides a distraction from his hunger. This speaks volumes about the level of poverty he endures.
It's almost like Dickens is using these descriptions to evoke a visceral reaction in the reader. Forcing us to confront the discomfort and hardship that Toby experiences on a daily basis.
Exactly. He wants us to see Toby, not as a nameless, faceless figure, but as a real person with feelings, struggles, and a deep-seated desire for a better life.
And then we have this incredibly touching scene with Toby's daughter, Meg. She's prepared a special holiday dinner for him. Just a simple meal of tripe. But it's so much more than just food, isn't it?
Absolutely. That simple dinner speaks to the scarcity and resourcefulness of the working class. They might not have much, but they make the most of what they have, sharing it with those they love, even in the face of adversity.
Meg's love for her father shines through in this scene.
Yes.
And it makes the contrast with the opulence we see later even more striking. Speaking of which, their simple celebration is interrupted by the arrival of Alderman Cute and his companions. What's Dickens trying to achieve with this sudden shift?
He's deliberately juxtaposing two vastly different worlds. The world of the working class struggling to make ends meet, and the world of the wealthy elite oblivious to the struggles of those less fortunate.
The alderman's condescending attitude and language towards Toby and Meg are almost painful to read. He's all about putting down social ills like poverty and marriage, as if they were mere inconveniences to be swept under the rug.
This is Dickens at his satirical best. He's using the alderman as a caricature of the callous attitudes of the upper class towards the poor. Notice how the alderman's language is full of empty rhetoric and pronouncements about helping the poor, but there's no genuine empathy or understanding of their actual needs.
It's like he sees the poor as problems to be managed rather than people deserving of compassion and support.
Precisely. And this brings us to the theme of paternalistic charity, which Dickens was clearly critical of, this idea that the wealthy elite knows what's best for the poor and should dictate how they live their lives.
And this is further highlighted when Toby is sent on an errand to deliver a letter to Sir Joseph Bowley, another prominent figure who sees himself as the poor man's friend and father. The irony is palpable.
Sir Joseph embodies this paternalistic attitude perfectly. He believes in complete dependence on figures like himself, rather than empowering the poor to improve their own lives.
And this is where we're introduced to Will Fern, a struggling laborer who's been judged and dismissed by society. He's seeking work, but is seen as a problem to be managed, which is a stark contrast to Sir Joseph's self-proclaimed benevolence. But despite his desperate situation, there's this incredibly touching moment where he expresses his gratitude to Toby with a simple, "I thank you kindly." What do you think Dickens is trying to convey with this small but significant gesture?
It's a testament to the inherent dignity and resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Even in the face of immense hardship, Will retains his sense of gratitude and compassion. This simple act of kindness serves as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and humanity can prevail.
And then things take a turn for the fantastical as Toby hears the Chimes calling to him and decides to investigate the open tower door. The atmosphere inside is described as dark and eerie building suspense as he ascends the tower. Why do you think Dickens introduces this element of the supernatural?
This marks a shift in the narrative, a transition from the social realism of Toby's everyday life to a more symbolic and allegorical realm. The chimes represent a force that will guide Toby on a journey of self-discovery, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the society he lives in.
And then he comes face to face with the goblins of the bells, and reality as he knows it is shattered as he's shown visions of a possible future. This is a classic Dickens move, using the fantastical to comment on the real world.
These visions are a narrative device that allows Dickens to explore the potential consequences of societal attitudes and the harsh realities that await those who are marginalized and ignored.
And the visions he's shown are pretty distressing, particularly those centered on Meg and Richard, facing immense hardships. It's as if Toby's optimistic worldview is being systematically dismantled.
These visions are a wake-up call not just for Toby, but for the reader as well. Dickens is challenging our complacency and forcing us to see the potential consequences of inaction and indifference.
So it's not enough to simply acknowledge the problem of poverty and inequality. We need to actively engage with it, to challenge the systems that perpetuate it, and to advocate for those who are most affected by it.
Exactly. And that's precisely the journey that Toby is about to embark on through these visions. He's forced to confront the harsh realities of his world and to grapple with his own role in perpetuating these injustices.
And that's where we'll leave it for now. In the next part of this deep dive, we'll explore how these visions transform Toby's perspective and how he grapples with the weight of these newfound insights.
Stay tuned as we delve deeper into Dickens' social commentary, his use of symbolism, and the enduring relevance of the chimes in today's world.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Dickens' The Chimes. We left off with Trotty Veck reeling from the chilling visions revealed to him by the goblins of the bells. What's interesting is that these visions weren't just fleeting glimpses. They spanned years. When Toby returns to his own time, it's revealed that 9 years have passed.
This time jump isn't merely a plot device. It serves to emphasize the weight of those lessons he's learned. It underscores how precious time is, especially when it comes to addressing societal wrongs.
It's as though he's been granted a second chance. But now he has to confront a world where Meg and Richard have endured nearly a decade of hardship shaped by the very forces he previously accepted, without question.
Yes, and this is where we see the long-term consequences of those societal forces, particularly on Meg. We see her struggling to survive, working long hours for meager pay. Eventually, she's forced to make heartbreaking choices just to keep her child fed.
It's tragic because Meg's plight illustrates the cyclical nature of poverty, how despite hard work and resilience, she's trapped in a system designed to keep her down.
Exactly. Dickens masterfully portrays how even the most well-intentioned individuals can become victims of a system that perpetuates poverty, robbing them of opportunities for upward mobility.
Adding to the tragedy, her marriage to Richard has fallen apart. He's turned to alcohol and despair, burdened by their circumstances.
Think about those who deemed Richard too good, for Meg pushing him away from a life of simple love and labor. He internalized those messages only to find himself spiraling downward.
It's a powerful indictment of hypocrisy of those who preach self-reliance but deny individuals the very means to achieve it.
Dickens is exposing the emptiness of rhetoric that ignores the systemic issues at the heart of poverty and suffering.
And then there's that harrowing scene where Meg, driven to desperation, contemplates a truly horrifying act. It's a chilling reminder of the extreme choices that poverty can force upon people.
This scene is undeniably difficult to read, but Dickens isn't aiming to shock for shock's sake. He's using this dramatic moment to awaken the reader's conscience, to make them confront the brutal reality of what poverty can drive people to.
It's in these moments that Dickens' skill as a social commentator truly shines. He's not afraid to portray the darkest aspects of human experience while simultaneously showcasing the strength of the human spirit.
Precisely, and even in this bleakness, there's a glimmer of hope. Meg's unwavering love for her child. Even in her darkest moment, her baby is her anchor, a source of strength.
It makes you think, can love, even in its purest form, sometimes blind us to reason? Can it lead to choices that might ultimately harm those we're trying to protect?
This is the complexity that Dickens grapples with. He doesn't offer easy answers, but prompts us to think about the multifaceted nature of love and its potential consequences.
And throughout all of this, Toby is watching Meg's descent, forced to confront the gravity of the lessons the Chimes have tried to teach him.
This realization is pivotal. He finally understands the urgency of challenging the status quo, of fighting for a more just world. He's no longer a passive observer, but an active participant.
It's a complete transformation. He's shedding his complacency and accepting responsibility for his role in the world around him.
Yes, he moves from simply enduring injustice to challenging the systems that perpetuate it.
And this newfound resolve leads to that dramatic climax where Toby directly confronts those who have been manipulating him. He finds his voice challenging the hypocrisy of those in power.
This is such a powerful moment. It's a testament to the transformative power of empathy, of understanding.
It's cathartic not just for Toby, but for the reader, too. We see that even seemingly ordinary people can find the strength to stand up against injustice.
It's a timeless message that resonates strongly, especially during the holiday season when we're often called upon to reflect on our values and to help those in need.
Dickens masterfully uses this backdrop to amplify these themes, making us question how our actions, however small, shape the world around us. What do you make of Toby's journey so far? What stands out to you as particularly impactful?
What resonates most with me is the evolution of Toby's understanding of his own agency. At the start, he accepts his lot in life without question. But through these fantastical experiences, he comes to realize he has the power to choose differently, to challenge the systems that keep him and others down.
It's a powerful message that's just as relevant today as it was in Dickens' time. It reminds us that we all have a responsibility to fight for a more just and compassionate world.
Exactly. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things. It's about recognizing our own power to create change, starting with our own communities and extending outward.
That's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive. Next, we'll explore the resolution of Toby's journey and the lasting impact of the lessons he's learned. What can our listener look forward to as we wrap up this exploration of the Chimes?
We'll delve into how individual transformation like Toby's can inspire collective action and societal change. We'll see how Dickens uses the resolution of the Chimes to offer a powerful vision of hope and the potential for a more just and compassionate future.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Dickens' The Chimes. We've witnessed Trotty Veck's transformation from a passive observer to an active challenger of societal injustice. But what does that mean for him and those around him? How does Dickens resolve this tale?
It's fascinating how Dickens uses the resolution to emphasize that individual change isn't enough. Toby's transformation must lead to tangible actions that create a more just and compassionate world.
So it's not just a feel-good ending where everything magically falls into place?
Not at all. Dickens is urging us to remember that awareness without action is meaningless. Real change requires us to engage with the world and challenge those systems that perpetuate injustice, and this call to action is beautifully woven into the resolution of Meg and Richard's story. They find their way back to each other, their love rekindled despite the hardships.
Their reunion is more than just a romantic resolution. It symbolizes the power of hope and resilience. They've emerged from hardships stronger and more committed to building a life together based on love and shared purpose.
Precisely. And this time, their love isn't burdened by societal pressures or anxieties about social mobility. It's a love tested and refined by adversity, proving its depth and resilience.
And importantly, they now have the support of a community that values compassion and empathy. Characters like Mrs. Chickenstalker highlight the need for a social fabric that uplifts those in need.
Yes, this speaks to the interconnectedness of individual and collective action. Positive change often emerges from both personal growth and social reform working hand in hand.
And that collective spirit is beautifully represented in the joyful celebration at Toby's house. It's a celebration of love, community, and shared hope for a better future.
That festive atmosphere is a stark contrast to the somber tone at the beginning of the novella. It signifies a shift in perspective, a renewed belief in happiness and progress, even amidst ongoing challenges.
So even when faced with hardship, we shouldn't lose sight of celebrating the good, those small victories.
Exactly. Dickens is reminding us that joy and celebration aren't mere indulgences. They're essential acts of resistance, affirmations of our humanity that fuel our commitment to a better world.
And where does Toby end up in all of this? Has he truly been changed by his experience?
Toby's transformation is the most profound of all. He moves from blind acceptance to active engagement. He's no longer content to endure injustice. He's determined to challenge it, to fight for a future where everyone is valued and respected. He understands now that the chimes aren't just bells, they're a call to action.
So those fantastical elements, the goblins, the visions, they served their purpose. They woke Toby up to the realities around him and empowered him to act.
Yes, and in doing so, they've also empowered us as readers. Dickens reminds us that we all have a role to play. Our choices, however small, can make a difference.
It's a message of hope and responsibility that resonates deeply, especially during this time of year. It encourages us to reflect on our values and our impact on the world.
Precisely. The Chimes is a timeless reminder that true joy doesn't come from passive acceptance, but from actively engaging with the world and fighting for a more just and compassionate society.
So as we step back into our own realities, what can we take away from Toby's journey?
Dickens leaves us with this thought. Do those satirical portrayals of societal attitudes he depicted ring true, even today? It's a challenge to examine our own communities, our beliefs, our actions. Are we perpetuating inequality, or are we actively working to dismantle it?
It's a powerful question to consider, especially as we enter a new year, a time for fresh starts. We can all strive to be a bit more like Toby, embracing empathy, challenging injustice, and celebrating the power of love and community.
Beautifully put. Remember, even the smallest acts of kindness and courage can ripple outward, creating waves of change that transform our world for the better. Let's ring in the new year committed to a more just and compassionate world, a world where everyone can hear those chimes of hope and humanity.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Dickens' The Chimes. We hope you found it enlightening and inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep believing in the power we all have to create a world where everyone can hear those chimes of happiness and hope.